So my very first wing coaster I rode was Wild Eagle at Dollywood. And I had to think about it what my first one was, because I feel like I started riding a bunch kind of like
very rapidly.
At that moment, there was a bunch back to back. I guess that I started really getting into wing coasters pretty quick. And then for Alex, it was also Wild Eagle, but you were like frequenting Dollywood at that point.
Yeah, Dollywood was a regular occurrence for me. So like when it opened, it was brand new, and I was just there. It was actually CoasterCon was there in 2012. So rode Wild Eagle, and then a couple months later, it was summer conference at Six Flags Great America, and so I rode X-Flight as well. Still haven't ridden the original. Neither of us have ridden the original Raptor at Gardaland. But
so this episode is going to be kind of niche, maybe, for those that are tuning in. But today, it's actually going to be all about wing coasters. It's actually one of our favorite product lines. For me, it may even be my favorite product line. I'm such a wing coaster fan. And we've ridden 15 out of 18 wing coasters worldwide. So, I mean, we're still missing 3. We're missing Da Vinci Ride. We're missing Maximus in Germany. And we're missing the original, actually, Raptor in Gardaland.
Yeah.
And then there's one that never opened at Hot Go Dream World in China. But that one I don't count because it's never opened. Like, it was just, it's just sitting there abandoned.
And we rode the clone of
18
it.
Operating, we've been on 15 of them.
For the Swarm at Thorpe Park, which was new for you this year. The first time I rode it in 2015 was another ACE event, actually. And it was still fairly new. It was like 3 years old. And for the first... Well, not the first 3. For the first year, it ran with like a normal. And then I believe it was the second, third, and fourth seasons, 2013 through 2015. It ran with the last 2 rows, I think, backward. So you could ride it backward. And that was a really fun gag. Like, I just kind of assumed that that's something that they would do, like, forever. But then right after I rode it, they flipped the seats forward again. Which is weird, because I thought it was not only was it a great gag, but then Mandrill Mayhem down the road would open with a rear-facing back row of seats, too. So, I don't know. I thought it was really cool.
Hey, a very good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Sean.
This is Alex.
You're listening to another episode of
Coaster Kings Radio.
And today's episode is called In It to Wing It, and I think it's a cute name.
Yes.
And it's because we're going to be just talking about wing coasters today. And I don't know, people just maybe don't like wing coasters, then maybe it's not be the episode for you. But maybe you should stick through, because I think we are pretty well versed on the wing coaster lexicon. We've done a lot of wing coasters around the world. Including a bunch in China, they have some spectacular wing coasters. That's like, I feel like the next gen of wing coasters. So we're going to be talking about our experiences with wing coasters, why we love it so much, a little bit about the history of the product line. And maybe at the end of the episode, you'll appreciate wing coasters like we appreciate wing coasters. That's not my new goal I set out for. But Alex is our history buff. And so I'm putting Alex right on the spot. And Alex, would you please tell everyone kind of like how the wing coaster came into the picture?
I think the wing coaster, to look at the B&M Wing Coaster, you kind of have to start with the first documented roller coaster where the seats were neither above or below the track, but like parallel to the track, which was Alan Schilke and Aerodynamics X2 at Magic Mountain. And like the fact that it was a wing coaster was like secondary to the fact that the seats rotated. It was sort of like a means to an end. It wasn't even like really the whole point of it. It was like just the smartest way to situate riders on this coaster that was going to flip people mid-ride. It just didn't make as much sense to do that, sitting over the track or even under it, but off to the side, out on the outside, on the edges. The concept, made more sense. X2, of course, was very expensive and very intimidating. very exciting. There was a lot of, positive qualities to it, but I think it was just too much. Like, it was just not going to appeal to a lot of demographics. They did sell a couple more, of course, in 2006 and 2012, respectively. We got Ejanica and Dinaconda. But that was pretty much where it ended. There was it's almost like they sort of passed the torch. 2012 was the year that we got the last of the original
I always kind of
4D
feel
coasters.
as if Dinaconda is what introduced the Chinese companies really to push for wing coasters.
Absolutely.
Because of course, like Dinaconda was it was kind of early in the modern theme park scape of China. 2012 doesn't sound like it's very early, but most of the regional parks were from around that time or came after.
Mm-hmm.
So having Dinaconda being kind of like the slam dunk and kind of like the coolest looking coaster, I think that really quickly made the wing coaster a very interesting concept for Chinese parks, which is why I think we see such a high amount of them in
Between
China.
that and then obviously China has been the biggest proponent of wing coasters. They've got almost half of them of the B&M wing coasters, and then the first B&M wing coaster to grace China was Parrot Coaster at Chimong Ocean Kingdom in 2014, which had a huge impact. That whole park had a massive impact on the mainland Chinese marketplace. So yeah, I would say between Dinaconda being so influential and Parrot Coaster, from there on, the wing coasters came in very quick succession in China. Just about as quickly as they could be built, they were popping up in China. For every region that was getting one that was outside of China, a park inside of China was getting one too. And then I also would be remiss if we didn't mention that Intamin had their crack at a standard wing coaster with Furious Baco at PortAventura, which opened in 2007, and that product line of just a wing coaster, or a hydraulically launched wing coaster in this case, just came and went like nothing. Like, seemed as quickly as Intamin decided to do this, they were done with it. And they were kind of also doing their version of X2 with their Zaxspin coasters. So they had already kind of experimented with doing seats on the edge of a coaster. Or maybe this was all kind of happening at around the same time. Everybody was sort of trying to figure out how they wanted to do their version of the wing coaster. And there was a mix of static and spinning applications to the ride system. Because I want to say that Kernu at Gronelund, at Linnenmaki was I think the very first of the Intamin Zaxspins, and I think that was 2007. I think that was the same year. But also a wing coaster in a sense, more in the X2 brand or style. And then from there they moved on to rides like Sky Rush and Flying Ace, I think is what it's called, in Ferrari, where it was had wing seats,
Flying
but
Aces,
also wing seats, but also middle seats in the sense. So the true wing coaster, as we know it, when I think of a wing coaster, when somebody says a wing coaster, that was born in 2011 by B&M. And I remember when they were working on, when the prototype for the wing coaster was being teased, people had just kind of assumed that rotating seats were on the table, either as a potential or as a future offering or something that B&M would willfully do, but that it was not the case.
When they introduced Raptor and Gardaland in 2011, I wonder if this was already part of a package deal with the Merlin Entertainment Parks, because they were the European exploiter of the whole product line, where they were pumping them out, and then they're pretty much three of their biggest parks in Europe, because shortly after Raptor, they opened Swarm, which you already kind of mentioned.
Yeah.
And then they also opened Flug der Dämonen in Heide Park another 2 years later. So, I mean, for the European, and of course, since then, they've added even more. They have the Mandrill Mayhem, and they have Maximus. So, for the whole European market, the vast majority of them are at the Merlin Entertainment Parks. So I wonder if their push for that early on maybe has something to contribute to the success.
Yeah, probably. B&M was doing other projects for those parks at the same time too, because the same year that Rapper opened at Gardaland, Heide Park opened Krake, their little miniature B&M dive machine. And then Gardaland would also later open a dive machine. It was becoming a thing to have a wing coaster and a dive coaster in your park, like a very likable like yin and yang of ride styles, where both of them kind of offer a sitting outside of the track experience, but then like two very different kinds of applications, because you have one like the standard wing coaster is like very elegant and like very flowy and not super aggressive or intense, and then you have dive coasters which are a lot more aggressive and intimidating, and typically more forceful.
One thing I really like about this product line from its inception is that it was never truly like a clone that then eventually became more of a customized layout.
Mm-hmm.
There is technically a clone out there. RCTB claims there's two clones, but I actually disagree with that. Of course, there's a Hot Go model where there's one that's standing there, not operating at Hot Go Dream World and never open. And then there's the one that we rode that's Wings of Glory, that is at HB World in Suzhou in China. But then they also claim there's another one, which are the two Happy Valley ones, the recent ones, the Chongqing one and the Forest Predator one. I don't agree with them because the sizing is so different. But the layouts are very inspired, that's for sure. But other than that, every single layout that they built was very different. And I remember when they announced X-Flight, which was one of the early ones at Six Flags Great America, I was like, okay, this is like the new Batman clone.
It's going to be the product line.
It did a lot of things. This is going to be the product line. We're going to see this clone.
Or at least like the new Superman Ultimate Flight, where we would see at least another at least a couple. Or two or three.
But to my surprise, like every single one of them, even the kiddie ones or the family ones they've been doing, they're all different. And that's nice. Because if you don't count the Hot Go one because it's sitting abandoned, there's not a single one that's an actual clone of another one.
Yeah, every single operating application of this ride system has a unique layout. And like you said, Flying Wing Coaster at Happy Valley Chongqing and Forest Predator at Happy Valley Nanjing are labeled as clones in Roller Coaster Database, which we had no reason to refute that until we rode them both back to back. Like it was like one day apart, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was literally like the next day, because we weren't planning on going on to Happy Valley Nanjing, because we flew from Chongqing to Nanjing that morning, and they were gonna just hang out in the city, and then we ended up going to the park that afternoon, and so we actually did ride them both, but then probably about 28 hours from each other. Yeah.
And when we walked up to Forest Predator, the first thing we said was like, this is not a clone, a Flying Wing Coaster. First of all, it's not as tall. Flying Wing Coaster
not nearly as tall.
Has this big, like, almost like gatekeeper sort of scope to it. And
it's a terrain coaster because it's on the side of a hill.
And Forest Predator, it just feels slightly more compact. But then what the real giveaway was that the drops are different. They turn in opposite directions.
Yeah, and it gets much, much smaller. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you look at the train for Forest Predator going through it, the entire first drop / half loop thing, the train pretty much occupies the whole thing. Yeah. But then you look at Flying Wing Coaster in Happy Valley Chongqing, and there it's like almost like Gatekeeper or even like Wuxi Sunak's Falcon, where the trains are just kind of dwarfed by the size of the coaster. Because, what's interesting is I'm on RCTB right now, and I want to see if they have any heights listed, but I don't see any heights listed, which... it's part of the course because you would very easily be able to tell that they have very different sizes.
Yeah.
But there's no actual specs listed except
just
for
like looking at pictures
elements.
of it. Roller Coaster Database does offer a lot of photos of these rides, and it's just very clear that Forest Predator is like, I would say like maybe just like a fraction smaller, like maybe like 15-20% smaller in its general shaping and scope, and it was forceful. It was more forceful for sure, and and slightly better. I would say even though Flying Wing Coaster in Chongqing is so beautiful and has it's very scenic in a way that Forest Predator is not. Forest Predator is more aggressive, and of course it has the backwards facing row of seats, which we love.
So clearly we're passionate about this product line, and what I've decided the best way to go about this is because I kind of want to mention all of them.
Yes.
Not like super rapid fire, but at least talk about them a little bit because they are also different. It's not like we're over here ranking Batman clones. So we're going to just go by region. We'll start with Europe, then we'll do Asia, and then we'll do North America. And then at the end, I want to rank all of them.
Okay.
And I already have my little list ready.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of
Ranking
excited
them
to see
is
because I
hard.
have such a hard time ranking them. I know, which is why I think this would be
I
great
was
to
like,
do
what
on
the
air.
hell? I was thinking about it, and I'm like, ooh.
Also, super random, but Alex has already been working a little bit. I just got up and I'm about to go to work. I'm already sitting here like covered in, I have my uniform covered up by like a sweatshirt.
Yeah, it's funny. We're doing this at the same
doing
time.
this like early in the morning when I'm barely having my little jasmine tea is going to be very
And
fascinating
I am
to
at
see what
the end
this
of my
top 15
workday, and
becomes.
yours has yet to begin, even though we're only 2 time zones apart today.
So, with having said that, we'll start with Europe, and I think we should start with Swarm. So, Swarm, I really like Swarm.
I love Swarm.
So, Swarm is located at, you know what, just for people that are just tuning in or the coast enthusiasts and don't exactly know where everything is located, especially for the Asia wing coasters, let's just quickly discuss also where they're located and maybe any sort of basic specs on them.
Mm-hmm.
So, Swarm opened in March of 2012, located at Thorpe Park, just outside of London, and of course, United Kingdom. And that's one of the early ones. I think it was technically the second one to open, if I'm not mistaken, unless it was. Yeah, it was a week ahead of Wild Eagle. So
Swarm
second one
opened. Yeah, it was. It was the second one. It opened, like a week and a half before Wild Eagle. I kind of forgot about that. I forgot that it opened before. That 2 of the European ones opened before Wild Eagle. In my mind, Wild Eagle and X-Flight are the second and third installations, but then of course Swarm was right there at the same time.
So Swarm's layout is not super long, but what it does really does count. I think it's one of my favorite wing coasters. Well, I'm going to say it's one of my favorite wing coasters. Every single wing coaster is my problem, actually. I feel like every single time I ride a wing coaster, I'm like, it's my favorite.
I feel like there's
like
for 10 of them that belong in the top 5.
So which is why it's going to be so difficult. At least the bottom ones are not hard to figure out. But anyway, so Swarm, big broad strokes, but really kind of intense. I really remember being like, oh my God, this is... I know people sometimes like to complain that wing coasters aren't that intense, but there's some out there that are really intense. And like I grayed out on Swarm every single time we rode because you have that incline loop that goes into a helix over the water. And that stuff is intense for a wing coaster. I was shocked.
And it's aging like a fine wine. It is like a beautiful...
and running so well.
Sophisticated ride, in my opinion, and very well set.
And Swarm is themed to the apocalypse, like everything else at Thorpe Park.
Yeah.
And so there's a couple of really cool flyby elements. The nice thing about the wing coaster is I feel like from day one, from its inception with Raptor, a focus has been to use the wing element as it's not just something on ride, but also off ride. And having a lot of close calls and keyholes is something that's been a thing for a lot of the installations. Not all of them, but the vast majority of them have some sort of elements or a couple of thematic elements that only a wing coaster could really traverse. Almost like a child playing with like shaped blocks and they have to go through holes, because like the wing coaster so nicely goes through those elements. And so there's a couple of cool ones here on Swarm. Swarm has a giant airplane wing you go underneath. You go through a billboard. You skim over the water with like some water effects, and they weren't too long for our visit actually this trip. But I think that, and the station roll. How can I forget the station roll? It rolls through the station over the loading platform, through an old church. The keyhole elements on this are pretty spectacular. Like Swarm doesn't do as much as some of the other ones, but what it does very well.
It's one of the shorter ones. The Merlin ones are all very short. In fact, all of them are either like 2,500 feet ish, maybe like they're all less than 2,600 feet. And then of course the 2 most recent ones, the little miniature ones that they built in 2023 are less than 1,500 feet. So like they're very short, but I
always kind of chalked it up to just being the start of the product line. It's not like X-Flight and Wild Eagle all that big.
Yeah.
I think it was maybe even Chimelong Ocean Kingdom that like pushed for something massive. And then that's when the big wing coaster was invented.
Cedar Point
of course
came
they started
first.
building that.
Cedar Point, when Gatekeeper
Yeah, but let's not forget that Chimelong Ocean Kingdom was under construction for a couple of years before.
I guess that's true.
Like they were already constructing Parrot Coaster well ahead of the park's opening. So Gatekeeper, I think, was very likely came later in the design process.
Parrot Coaster and Gatekeeper are almost exactly the same length, actually. They're only 30 feet apart in length.
Because the fact that Parrot Coaster opened in January of 2014 means that it was probably constructed late 2012.
Yeah, that's true.
Because the whole park is integrated with it. The whole park is like, the aquariums are built below it.
Yeah, you could say that
you don't just build a coaster into an aquarium
Gatekeeper
afterwards.
and Parrot Coaster were probably happening at about the same time. in terms
Yeah.
of development. And then Flug der Dämon was just a couple months after Parent.
So then, sticking to Europe, Mandrill Mayhem is just down the road from Swarm. And Mandrill Mayhem, we recently did episodes on both of these, actually. We did a Thorpe Park episode, we did a Chessington episode. For me, Mandrill Mayhem is not all that great. I like the fact that it's a shuttle coaster. It's the only wing shuttle coaster where you launch forwards, backwards. It's a very different layout, family-friendly, but yet kind of, it keeps it interesting. But I just don't think it tracks that well. And that's, of course, a new era B&M thing. I just don't think it tracks that well. For me, but I like the idea of it more than I like the actual ride, which is a lot for me to say about a wing coaster, to be honest, because usually I feel so passionate.
I agree with you. I don't think it's as bad. We were talking about this episode. I know you said that it was like the only one that you hate more than Rapterra. I don't think it's as bad as Rapterra because it's just less offensive. The Rapterra,
yeah, but it does more though.
I would give it to Rapterra. I would give it to Mandrill Mayhem just because it's so unconventional and it like has the backward row of seats and the launches. Like it's got 4 launches and the little back spike thing. It's just it was so weird. It doesn't even feel like it's part of the same product line in a way.
I guess we'll have to argue that a little bit more when we do the ranking because I just don't agree. But
it's like Rapterra is so conventional. Like it just is exactly what you would expect.
It's not conventional.
And it's terrible.
Anyway, let's talk about Mandrill Mayhem.
But yeah, no, I like Mandrill Mayhem a lot. It's got a nice presence to it. And it's just different. It's
having the 2 seats in the back that face backward, or like the one row, with 2 seats in each side going backwards. It's kind of fun because then you launch out of the station, going into that half loop but going forwards, and then the rest of the first half of the ride is backwards. That is kind of enjoyable. I mean, having a forwards backwards component where every single seat does the wing thing backwards and forwards, that's kind of fun. I will say that I love everything backwards and every single ride having a backwards element to it, even if it's not a whole lot. That's kind of cool. But man, it should not run like that for a little coaster, and that's for me a big detractor. So for me, Mandrill Mayhem, in the grand scheme of wing coasters, probably the one I'm the least passionate about.
Yeah,
for many reasons. Because I'm probably, even though I hate the way that Rapterra runs, I'm more passionate about it. For all reasons, bad and good. Then there is one of the little powerhouse wing coasters that I think anyone's ridden it would probably agree this may even be one of the most intense wing coasters out there, and that's Phoenix at Toverland in the Netherlands. And Phoenix opened in
2018.
Please hold, 2018. I forgot how recent it was.
Phoenix is the longest wing coaster in Europe, actually,
which is wild to me because
it's not very long.
So short. Is it really the longest in Europe?
It's the only one in Europe that exceeds 2,600 feet. The Merlin ones,
I'm pretty impressed.
The 3 OG Merlin ones are all roughly 2,500 feet, and then the little baby ones. So Phoenix is the only one that's longer, and it's only slightly longer.
Yeah, calling me shocked actually, because I think in my head Phoenix is so short. Maybe that's because Phoenix spacing is much better. Because when you ride Phoenix, I mean, you have your really big first drop thing, your half loop drop, but after that the majority of the ride is actually very, very fast paced. You have a really good airtime hill, and then you have your sidewinder-ish element, your Immelman.
Yeah, you spend quite a bit of that ride relatively close to the ground.
Yeah, and you have a big helix, which is of course very fast, and you have a low 0G roll, not a helix, and I guess I can see how the ride is kind of stretched out because the Immelman is quite far away from the lift hill and the first.
And doing
drop.
that full helix
but in
at
between,
the bottom,
it's just
is like there's a lot of length hiding in there. Like I can see it. I'm not terribly surprised that it's longer than Swarm or like the one at Heidi Park.
What's so fun about Phoenix is I think it's such a good ride for Toverland. It really was like their big expansion, like entering new territory for the park. It's in a beautiful area. Now they added a bunch of flat rides around it. So now that helix, it used to be like on a berm, now it goes around one of those Skyflyer rides from Gerstlauer, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And the theming of it is just awesome. Like the queue, you go into Merlin's castle, I believe, if I understand it correctly. And then, of course, the Phoenix is themed to a Firebird. And you have a little pre-lift scene where you go by this like ice dragon or ice bird. Dragon? Bird? I can't even remember exactly what the character is. But either way, it's just super cool stuff. And then the top of the lift is kind of cool because you have a turn before you do your half loop drop, which is
Yeah, it's
actually
a
kind of
very
unique because I feel like
interesting
most.
drop. All the other wing coasters either go straight into the dive loop or just go into a straight drop, basically. This is the only one that does something slightly different than that, than
Like
those
an
two.
like an elevated turn. I enjoy that, and then just the integration with the area is actually quite neat. Like it's not like a super highly integrated ride. It's like some of the Chinese ones that we're going to talk about. But for the European ones, it's probably the nicest integrated when it comes to the actual area. Like it has a presence. It's definitely designed to be the focal point of the area. There's like a dark ride, boat ride that goes underneath it, outside, inside. That's all. Overall, it's a nice product, and it is actually like a very feisty, intense little ride. So shout out to Phoenix for that. I think it's a great fit for the park. I don't know where I would rank it, but we're not at that point anyway. And then, which I can't believe this thing is shorter, we have Flug der Dämonen at Heide Park in Germany, not far from Hamburg. And this ride, it's very good.
It is good.
It's a compact little
It packs
powerhouse.
a
It's
lot.
like if you were to, if you're gonna build a B&M Wing Coaster and you're gonna make it like a spaghetti bowl, this is the closest thing we've got to that. Because somehow they managed to fit all these elements in what was used to previously like a medium-sized log flume plot.
I love this ride. I love, like, the first half of it, I guess, is a little bit more straightforward. It's a little more wing coaster by the numbers. I love having that airtime hill. Not enough of the wing coasters have airtime hills. Because
It's a terrain coaster too.
Chongqing and Nanjing, that one has an airtime hill too. It's like, it's awesome. And then after the Immelman, really, that's when the ride really starts to get disorienting because it does these maneuvers. It's got two elements in a row, I guess 3, depending on how you count them, that aren't like, they're not straightforward and they're not easy to like describe or define. And they remain fairly like unique to this ride because you go into what would seem like a normal like 0G roll barrel thing, but then like because of the way that the ride's positioned and like the landscaping and the structures.
It's almost like a step up underflip.
Yeah. It's like it does that and then it's immediately into like a little up, like a little helix, like an aerial helix, and then dives down. And then it does this sort of pretzel shaped maneuver that I love, that it's like it's also kind of starts out like it seemed like it might be a roll, but then it kind of it rolls out of it. It's sort of like a dive loop, but like a tilted dive loop, and then kind of does a similar maneuver in reverse. I love it, the fluidity of like the second half of this ride, because it's almost hard to decide, like to describe where like one move begins and another one ends. It's all extremely fluid, and like B&M can do very
point,
fluid,
actually, yeah.
like difficult, like not clearly defined moments on rides, but like this particular one does the best example of on a wing coaster, I think, of like having
I
not
agree.
very clearly defined elements and like a nice collage of things that are very unique to this ride. And having 5 inversions in such a short ride is also very impressive, and it doesn't feel like too much. It doesn't feel like excessive inversions. It feels just right.
So yeah, I think you're right. Generally speaking, the wing coasters are pretty much like element, especially for early generation. This is an early generation one. This is 2014. They are generally speaking, I think, historically very much a like element, but they're very clearly defined. And like you said, this ride doesn't have that definition. And what the cool thing is that's on the side of a hill. So your first drop, your half loop drop, is actually kind of short, but then you have an airtime hill that dives down quite significantly further down. It's almost like a double down drop, which is kind of crazy. And everything it does is just like on its terrain, like you said, that weird half helix coming out of. Now, when you go into the 0G roll, it's a pretty big element, but coming out of it, it's super sharp and short. And because you're on top of the hill again, right next to the bobsled station, and then that helix turns into another big drop. I feel like everything you do here is you kind of like make your way down to the end of the plot. It's very, very fascinating layout. And the more I look at it now, it's been a few years since you've written it. Man, I'm
ready to go back. I'm ready to write it again.
Yeah,
now just looking, admiring it.
I remember thinking one of my favorites.
I'm like, this has a very satisfying layout. Like it is just so beautiful, so stylish, elegant, and
for our journey and being a wing coaster experience, this was kind of in the middle for us. We'd already done a couple of Chinese ones, we'd done a couple of European ones, mostly US ones already, but then we also have since done some more Asia and European ones. So this really sits in the middle of our experiences. But now I think about it, I do remember. I just think back to it very
It
fondly.
lives
I love
very
photographing it,
positively in my memory, and I definitely want to write it
and
again. Because I feel
yeah,
like
some of these elements it look like
it
a
will
wing.
shoot up in my personal rankings when I write it again, just based on
Yeah, I agree.
my ability to appreciate it even more now since the last time we wrote it, just because none of the other wing coasters really resemble this one.
100%. And some of these elements look like a train shouldn't even be able to navigate through it. So I'll take considered one of the cooler ones for sure. And next on my list, and my phone is locked, so I'll pull up my list again. Oops, please hold. Next, okay, that was actually for Europe. I forgot. That was all written in Europe. So there are 2 more in Europe. And like we mentioned, that is Maximus at Legoland, Deutschland. And then we have, of course, the original Raptor. But I don't want to speak on them because we haven't written them. So we will also not be ranking them. Anyway, they do exist. Next up, Asia. I think this is where it starts getting very interesting.
This is our because Roman Empire is the wing coasters of Asia. We'll try.
But the wing coasters of Asia are like, you know how like the cities in Asia are bigger than the cities in Europe? Well, the wing coasters are bigger than the wing coasters in Europe. Like, it's just like general rule of thumb is they're just bigger, because even the hardcore model, which feels tiny for the Chinese wing coaster collection, is like a European sized one anyway. So we're gonna start with Wings of Glory, which is located. This is the closest one I think you can ride if you're like on vacation in Shanghai or something. And people seem to skip this park all the time, which I'm a little bit baffled by.
They can't find it.
Would you agree? People always skip HB World, but HB World is like probably the closest park to Shanghai. That isn't like in Shanghai because it's in Jiangsu province. But anyway, I feel like everyone listening, if you want to ride a cool wing coaster, go to HB World, babes. Like, that's where it's at. It's a gorgeous park, larger than life settings. It's a film studio theme park, and even though the dark rides are not great, the actual physical sets of like the entire park and the scapes they've built, I mean, those are some of the best in the world. They're like real size, life size cityscapes and temples, and you know, it's really cool stuff. So if anything, it's just really like a pleasure to walk around here. And the bonus is that they have a really cool wing coaster.
It's funny to think that every wing coaster in China is longer than every wing coaster in Europe. So if you're a European enthusiast and you've only ridden the European B&M wing coasters, and if you've come to the States but not China, then like the largest wing coaster you've ridden is Gatekeeper. If you've ridden Gatekeeper, it's like, it almost feels like you would have just 2 very different ideas of what a B&M wing coaster is if your only experience with the ride is in Europe or in any U.S. park that is not Cedar Point versus China, because wing coasters, like you said, in China are just like inherently large. The HB World one, in my mind, it's sort of like a variation on X-Flight. I feel like it's basically X-Flight, but with also a vertical loop jammed in there and a helix. It's a great layout. It's very compact. Not overly ambitious or not so much a spectacle in the same way that a lot of the Chinese wing coasters are, because it is the smallest one, but like very satisfying. And like a really good, objectively nice ride layout that would also do well as a clone. Obviously, it is the only one that was properly accurately cloned. And HB Worlds is the clone. The OG one is the one that's at Hawkville Park that never opened. So the only way to experience this ride layout is to ride the clone of the OG.
And for a minute there was actually a layout version of this that cut out the vertical loop and made it a little bit compacter. That was rumored to be going to King's Dominion, where we now have Repterra. Yeah. And there was actually blueprints for this, I believe even permits, and I'm so glad they didn't pull through with it, just because I feel like, you know, King's Dominion did deserve an original layout, especially replacing Volcano. But it's not to say that Wings of Glory isn't phenomenal, but take out an element out of Wings of Glory and suddenly, of course, it's not as great either.
Wings of Glory is not a ride that needs to be reduced in size in any way, because it's already not very big. But it does have the most inversions of any wing coaster. Has 6.
Yeah. So actually, well, here it says 5, but
it has 3 corkscrew type things. The dive loop drop, a vertical loop, and an Immelman, right?
Hold Hold up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, it does have 6. I don't know why RCDB says it's 5.
For the same
Maybe
reason they
consider
say
the
that Forest
drop-in
Predator is a
version.
clone of the Chongqing Wing Coaster. They don't care.
Yeah, I guess so. So anyway, if we're gonna talk about like spaghetti bowl wing coasters or some really compact wing coasters where you're kind of surprised that it can even traverse the layout, this is one of them in my opinion, because they managed to. This is a. Let me just go ahead and present to you with a coaster of 118 feet in height, so not very tall at all. 118 feet. It manages to have a dive drop, a vertical loop, a 0G roll, an Immelman, a hardline roll, a corkscrew, and then a helix in all of that. And it's an incredibly compact ride, which is why I think we were so impressed when we rode it the first time. Because I also remember riding it the first time, liking it better than Falcon in Wuxi Sunak. That's a
This
conversation
is
for
another
later.
one
But,
that's very disorienting because of the constant
really liked
barrage
it.
of inversions.
And the trains are long. They're 8-vehicle trains, so they're kind of long trains for a layout this tight, which makes for a really, really good ride. So which is also why I think that people that go to China and they're going to go ride roller coasters, go to HB World, guys. Like, this coaster alone for me was worth the trip. It was awesome.
It's a really gorgeous ride,
But,
too. Beautiful station,
gorgeous
beautiful landscaping. The trains are stunning.
The trains are like steampunky.
Yeah, the trains are very
cool
like
stuff.
Da Vinci's Flying Machine kind of vibe to them, like paper craft.
And there's not many wing
themed.
coasters that have like tight corkscrews, almost like a B&M floorless
Like a flat spin.
coaster shaped corkscrews, and there's 2 of them. One is another coaster you've ridden, but it's just a really good ride, and the way that it kind of combines all the elements, it does kind of feel like element, but then the way that they connect the inline twist, hardline roll kind of thing, and turn it into a helix, and then that rolls right into the corkscrew. That's all very well done. And then the transition into the upward helix at the end, it's also hard to describe. It's just like it has a nice flow to it, even though I think this is one of the coasters that really does have element. It really does feel almost like a Batman clone in that regard.
Satisfying. It feels like you've done a lot. Like there's at least 7 elements on this ride, individual elements that you can name on this ride, 6 of which are inversions, and it still has like a great helix finale at the end. So there's something to be said for what this ride
it's a tight little helix too.
into this ride. Like there is no wasted space. There's no luxury of dicking around. Like everything on this ride has to count because, like you said, it's not very tall. You're going to do a wing coaster, and it's going to be less than 120 feet tall, and you're going to put 6 inversions in it. Like everything has to slap. Everything has to matter. So it's a really strong ride.
A great low coaster. I understand why this thing was cloned, and I actually wouldn't even be that mad if they cloned it again, because I think this is one of those layouts that like a chain, maybe like even like a Six Flags or something, could really kind of make happen, because it just does a lot. It's a good layout, high
and I think it's better than X-Flight. I think it is based on X-Flight, and I think it's an improvement on X-Flight. So if a park,
I don't know if I would agree with that statement.
You don't think it's an improvement on X-Flight?
3 elements, maybe. Oh well, I would say maybe they're actually kind of neck and neck for me, because I do like that X-Flight kind of crosses over the path more. X-Flight feels like it's more all over the place, as for this thing is very much like out back. It's almost like a Z shape, where you go out to the far end, you come back to the far end, and you go back to the far end. That's it.
Yeah.
It's really compact, but to me, it feels like X-Flight is kind of all over the place more. Like, you really feel like it flows over that entire square plot a little bit more for me.
The biggest thing that X-Flight has that this ride doesn't is X-Flight has that really flat, slow roll that, like, pierces, that, like, slashes the whole layout, like, the whole plot of it.
I think that's super cool.
Yeah, Wings of Glory doesn't have the same like uninterrupted like slowness to its slow roll. It's still great.
And Wings of Glory is in the wing coaster province of the world, because in the same province we have 2 more to talk about. So next up in Jiangsu as well, a city over in Wuxi, you have you have Falcon, which is also called Eagle's Flight on the right side, because it's just China.
HB World, it's a Heaven's Wing is what it's called on Roller Coaster Database. So if you're looking for Heaven's Wing,
so it's always a true question, like what is actually the name of the ride. But next up we're going to talk about Falcon. And Falcon's located at Wuxi Sunak Glen. And Falcon is the tallest wing coaster ever built. It is like 1 foot shy of 200 feet, so
it's basically a hypercoaster. It has a taller drop than
like if they
Goliath
wanted
at
to
Six
inflate
Flags
the
over
number by
Georgia.
a few inches, they could have. and it looks like a hypercoaster. Like and I just came to this park a few days ago because I went back to ride a missing coaster there. If you listen to our last episode about Canada's Wonderland, you know I just went to Wuxi Sunek Land because I needed to get 2 more credits so I could make Alpen Fury my 1000th coaster. And of course, when I was back there, I really needed to ride Falcon. But when we rode Falcon for the first time in 2018, it was kind of early-ish on in our journey because we rode this before. We rode Wings of Glory, rode it before Parrot Coasters. It was early on in our journey. So for me, I remember liking it a lot, but thinking, oh, wow, I wasn't as impressed by it as I am now. So long story short, I just came back and rode it again, and it flipped the script on me.
It sounds like it's aging really well,
grade.
which is awesome.
It's running amazingly well, and it is so massive. Now, having ridden the vast majority of wing coasters, now I'm like, holy shit, Falcon is like its own category of massive wing coaster. That is really does feel like a hypercoaster. You're just so high up there. And even when you walk into the park and you see this massive wing coaster that goes through the rockwork in the center of the park, there's still a whole half of the ride that's hovering behind it. That's like a hypercoaster size. And seeing the trains go through that first drop, you're like, yeah, this is not like a normal wing coaster half dive, like a dive loop drop. It just feels like the little train is just dwarfed by it. And this time to me that was very, very noticeable because of course I've gone on 15, and now it's like, wow, okay, going back to the park, I feel like I appreciate it much more. We have to talk about this ride in more detail because it is one of the most creative layouts in my opinion.
I think of this ride as being like the Alpengeist of wing coasters because they are the same height. Both rides are 197 feet tall. I just love the scope of it and the vastness of it. It still holds the record, I think, for tallest inversion. For now, I think there's a coaster at Six Flags in Saudi Arabia that's going to break that record with a 200 plus foot tall inverted top hat. But for now, Wuxi Sunak, I think, still has the record as far as operating coasters goes. But yeah, what a great ride. And then like the first half is a little more like what you would expect, just blown up. It's like, okay, dive loop, drop, 0G roll, Immelman, And then the second half of the ride where it flies through the giant decorative mountain in the middle of the central lake of the park, I think is where it gets a little more interesting.
That's where it gets really interesting.
Because it wouldn't.
Yeah, because what you have is you have your, like we just mentioned, you have your drop 0G roll Immelman, and then you have almost like a S-turn switch track kind of flowy airtime hill. And then it really, really, really starts getting good. That first half is kind of like out in the open. It's not very pretty. It's just really big, which is, I think, was my biggest criticism on our first visit anyway.
The mountain's
a
little rough around the edges. Like when you're riding, you're just like all these leftover materials from construction and stuff. You're like, it's just not.
Again, on our first visit,
not as pretty.
Now it's a lot more polished, strangely.
Oh, it is? That's
but
great.
Then we did ride it right after opening though.
Yeah.
But anyway, so then you have an airtime hill that goes over the rockwork and dives towards the central lagoon of the park. You have this egg turn, like horseshoe turnaround, and then I think you hit one of the best wing coast moments on earth.
I don't
know how to come up with this thing, but it's so intense and it's so crazy. You have this like S turn where you do like a 180 turn in one direction, and the trains just flip. And you do a 180, of course, in the other direction, you hit the mid-course brake run. But it's just very low to the ground. And it goes through like a rock mountain while doing that. And it's a wing coaster, so like, of course, the shape is wide, and that movement is so extenuated, is that the word for it?
Graduated.
Like it's so amplified, really. Yeah, and it's just a really, really wonderful moment. And then after the mid-course brake run, you're like inside the mountain during the brakes, and you dive into like kind of a ditch, and then you have a slow roll through the mountain to go towards the station. And there's also like a walkthrough there, like one of those like rope course walkthroughs that goes through that same mountain. So like this whole
setup, and they have that water slide
really
thing that goes through the mountain too, right? The little
it was close, unfortunately. But
that was a cool ride.
Yeah, and that whole walkway around it where we went up the stairs into that like never built cafe, that's all closed off.
Like we didn't,
so you
realize
can't actually get as close anymore. Yeah, I was actually kind of excited to see if I could take a video there, but he couldn't. But the ride itself is holding up so well, and it's really a phenomenal wing coaster. It's almost like its own class. But I feel like there are a lot of wing coasters that have their own class, but this
one really is. I think there's like 4 or 5 size classes of wing coaster. You have like the 2 tiny 1,500 foot wing coasters that were built in 2023 on one end of the spectrum, and you have Falcon on the other end of the spectrum, which, as big as some of the other wing coasters are, like Gatekeeper and Parrot Coaster and Flying Wing Coaster and Chongqing, those three, which are also the other like massive wing coasters, are not the same scale as this ride. This one is like another step up. It's a league of its own. Like, that's why I feel like it reminds me so much of Alpengeist, because it is, not only are they in a similar scope and kind of approach, but like they're unequaled, whether you like them or not, or whether you think they're the best or not. It's like, on paper, they really stand out on their own, because no other application of this ride concept, of this ride system, was ever brought to quite to that same scale.
So then, and I want to move on just for the sake of time. We are staying in the same province, and we're moving on to a train ride a few hours further along, and this is at Nanjing. And in Nanjing, we have the new Happy Valley Nanjing Park, which seems kind of like inspired by the Sunek Park style of building, which is like a newer generation of Happy Valley Park, really. Also, the quality of it's still a little bit lower. But Forest Predator is there, and Forest Predator has a phenomenal layout. It's a drawn-out out-and-back layout with the keyhole elements.
It's the best keyhole.
I think its layout is very
ever.
fun. I think it's a really fun layout, because what you do, and I'm hoping I remember it properly in the right order, but you have your dive loop, you have an airtime hill, or is it zero G roll first?
Nope.
Zero G roll first.
It's the airtime hill first.
Airtime hill first? Yeah, and then you have a... See, this is
no, it's dive loop,
vertical loop,
airtime hill, vertical loop, big
vertical loop,
sweeping,
and super high elevated
corkscrew. And Forest Predator has a keyhole in the corkscrew that Flying Wing Coaster in Chongqing does not have.
And then you have a turnaround,
and then it turns left.
Element,
it's like a big L shape.
Yeah, and then you have another inversion. And that, which is like an inline twist, and then you go back to the brakes.
And then
it actually does quite a bit.
And then, something like that. We love these rides.
Anyway,
it's like, it's our favorite. It's like, we don't know what it does. Can't even.
No, I do remember what it does. It's just not the right order, I guess. One thing I will say about this coaster is that there's actually two airtime hills. So first you have a really big airtime hill, which is like the really big, which the Chinese wing coasters love doing that, by the way. Just having really big hills early on. Kind of like Gatekeeper has it too, actually. And then after that, you have your vertical, but then you have a super, super little speed airtime hill. And that is much better on the small version.
Okay, so
because it's like a tiny little jump.
I was wrong. We were both wrong. It's a dive loop drop, and then the big camelback hump hill, and then the vertical loop, and then the little airtime hill,
then a tiny little hop,
and then the huge corkscrew,
and then your elevated corkscrew,
and then the zero G roll, and then
turn.
the barrel, and then the spin, like the flat spin on the way back.
It does do quite a bit, and it's funny because this is the compactor version of it, and it's still quite big. So, like when we talk about the Chongqing one, imagine pretty much what we just mentioned, but then like on a massive
it's got everything.
Scale,
the only thing it doesn't have is an
size.
Immelman, but everything it does have is fire. That's how Wings
and
of
a giant vertical loop. It makes me happy, man.
That's how Wings of Glory sneaks in there with like the most inversions. It's the only of every possible inversion that a wing coaster has done, Wings of Glory has it, and most of these coasters, there's either a dive loop or an Immelman, or maybe two, but not like that. But not also a vertical loop. Like it's the only one that combines all three of those elements, and the obligatory 3 rolls.
What's so nice about this one is that it is kind of compact, and it's really wedged in between the park's buildings. Because this one's really meant to be... This is actually a really small park, but they have a couple of really big coasters that they really massively throw in there. And the way they build the pathways around the park, it makes you feel like the park's massive. But really, you're like kind of walking on the outside of the park, and all the rides are kind of inside.
What a great park this is,
It's actually a really fascinating park design. But yeah, this is actually a phenomenal wing coaster. It's very... Oh, they're all phenomenal. I'm going to keep saying
this
that.
one's in my... I'm going to say that this one
coaster.
is... Forest Predator is in my top 3. The top 3...
Because it runs backwards.
Is because it has the backwards seat.
Yeah.
It's so awesome. Sean begged the ride operator to let us queue up for the back row without going around.
Yeah, because of course it's China, so they're kind of being difficult about all that stuff from like the second that you step into the station. But we got a backwards ride, we got a forwards ride, and they took good care of us. So it was really nice.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a nice contrast because the day before, of course, we were in Chongqing and the Sichuan area, Chongqing, they were a lot more difficult with us. I mean, there was rides I wasn't allowed to ride, and they just would not budge. So
But that's a good segue into the other one.
Easier.
The OG.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Happy Valley Chongqing first, and then we'll move over to Parrot Coaster.
Yeah.
But the Wing Coaster in Happy Valley Chongqing is the same layout as you just mentioned. However,
same sequence of events.
For those that are familiar with the city, is on a crazy mountain range with super steep hills. And it makes for the coolest city in the world, in my opinion. I mean, it's like steampunk central with skyscrapers poking off of cliffs, literally. Like, you'll be on like the bottom floor, you'll be on street level to enter a building, and then like you walk to the end of the floor and you stare down 30 stories.
This is the Happy Valley that is literally a valley, because you start at the top and you descend into the rides.
Great point. But on the backside of the valley, so the backside of the Wing Coaster actually is a big drop off.
There's even more.
Yeah. So the Wing Coaster, even though it's in the valley of Happy Valley, because you have to really walk your way all the way down to the Wing Coaster, there is the Wing Coaster itself is on the side of a hill. So these elements we just described, so you have your dive loop and then your big airtime hill and your vertical loop. That's kind of on the plateau. And then you have your little airtime hill, and then you have your really big corkscrew. But this is when it starts suspending high over the ground, because this is where there's a drop off. And that actually dives down quite far into the valley, or on the backside of the park, when then it gains much more speed, in my opinion, than the one in Nanjing. And you have your 0G roll and your turnaround, and these elements are much further down, and then you have your slow roll back towards the station. So the elements are the same lineup. However, the shaping of it all is very, very, very different.
It's amazing how different
not just the
these
rolls
two
being in
rides
other
are.
directions. It is just like one feels like a gatekeeper-sized terrain suspended aerial feast. That's where the other one feels like a well-integrated, very tight, fits along the midway kind of Wing Coaster. But they do the same element of events. Which one do I like better? That is actually a very difficult question, because Forest Predator goes backwards, and I love that. But it didn't have the scope.
No.
It had
doesn't
really cool
have
elements,
the
and it's a great ride.
majesty of Flying Wing Coaster.
Yeah, but Flying Wing Coaster is in the same category as like Falcon, Gatekeeper, and Parrot Coaster, and maybe even Wing Coaster, Coffee on Paradise. That's like their own category of like the big boys.
And it has easily my favorite color scheme of any roller coaster ever built.
Yeah, like the neon green.
Yeah.
And the trains are beautiful, and like having Chongqing as your backscape, even though we're kind of in like the neighborhoods outside of Chongqing, having that as your backscape, having the mountains and the highly elevated train lines and roads, and of course your endless Chinese apartment complex. I mean, this is actually inside an OCT complex, which is like a
the overseas Chinese town, the actual
which operates
civil
the Happy Valley parks
setup.
Yeah, so you're actually, funny enough, inside one of their concept neighborhoods. That's also where the park is in. That kind of scheme is so China, and it's so Chongqing. I find that whole situation fascinating, as where the Nanjing one really is a much more basic, almost, I almost want to say like a Jiangsu province kind of thing.
It's in the suburbs.
It's in the suburbs, but it's also really flat, and it doesn't have any sort of majesty that obviously the Chongqing region is going to get
neck
you.
And neck, because like one has the tightness, one has the backwards row of seats, the other one has the scope, the height, the setting, the geography. Like it's really, really a tight race. Only one of them is in my top 3 for B&M Wing Coasters, to be honest with you.
and speaking of the big coasters, just for the sake of time, I guess we got to keep rolling a little bit quicker. We're going to be talking
keep this under an hour.
Probably
not.
Parrot Coaster at
Chaiwan Ocean Kingdom.
This is when it opened, it was by far the biggest wing coaster in the world. And now I'm actually not sure where it sits. It may still be the biggest. It is a massive coaster.
It wasn't
this
by
is
far the biggest. It was 30 feet longer than Gatekeeper. 30 feet.
Well, it was still the biggest.
By far.
Maybe because it was just so much more stretched out.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this coaster is not focused on the inversions, which is nice. It's kind of one of those flowy coasters with 3 inversions and a lot of our transitions. There's 3 tunnels under the midways. You go over the midways. You go over aquariums. This is one of those things where like it's so beautifully integrated with the rainforest area of Chang'an Ocean Kingdom, which is the second most attended theme park in China, maybe third at this point, because of Universal Beijing. But when it opened, it was actually the most attended theme park in China. For a couple of years, it actually performed better than Shanghai Disney. And it feels like that kind of ride. It feels like this this powerhouse looper slash just like concept ride that just is such a presence for the park.
This ride just is so badass to me. It feels so grand and so massive. And it's beautiful when, like, this is true of a lot of the Chinese wing coasters because they're all concept parks that are built from the ground up in one swoop. So, like, this and the other Chinese wing coasters are all, like, the wing coasters are really built and integrated so beautifully in the park. And I don't think there's a better example of that than Paracoaster, because the rainforest area of the park that it's in is just so magnificent. It is so stunning. And the ride is not only the focal point, but it's everything. It's the focus. It's the perimeter. It's the tent pole. It's the icon. It's the moment. Like, it's everything. The ride has
and it has
multiple
some great little elements where
underground tunnels.
You know, like we skim over the water,
like, crazy.
By the restaurants. You have that, of course, all the tunnels. You have the helix, and then you have, you go around that giant tree statue. The whole thing is just masterfully created.
The fact that it does a straight drop and then into a dive loop instead of an Immelman, because, like, in all other wing coasters, space is more of an issue. So, like, doing an Immelman saves you more space. This ride, they're like, we got all the room in the world. We're going to do a normal first drop.
Yeah, doing
and then we're going to jump
like
into a dive loop.
Yeah.
I love that so
over the lagoon,
much.
over the park. Yeah. And of course, this is in South China. So, like, it's in Guangzhou. This is in the Guangdong province. It's in Zhuhai. On the South China Sea, it's like Hong Kong weather. You can see it from Hong Kong.
Yeah.
The other day we were in Hong Kong. We can see the park from Hong Kong. It is hot. It is humid. It is a jungle. You're under mountains. This ride really feels like you're going through a lush jungle with the tunnels and the water.
Oh, yeah, the original name. Do you remember the original name for this ride before they
fly over
flying
rainforest?
over the rainforest? People were like, what is that?
Still been a cute name. Paracoaster is a little straightforward. Anyway, so next up, speaking of another really magnificent, well-themed, kind of broad stroke approach, maybe a little bit more compact, is the Wing Coaster at Colorful Yunnan Paradise. We rode this for the first time this year in April. We went to Yunnan, which is the most furthest west that we've been in China. The furthest we've been west.
The deepest we've gone to, like, for a coaster, for a park. Like, obviously, we went to the Yunnan province because the Yunnan province is amazing, but, like, going to a park out here, it was really, that's like the amount of distance that we traveled once we had already gone to China.
Have been to this park.
And God, what a great park. What a phenomenal park.
So first of all, Yunnan, and we did an episode about this, and I know it didn't do super well because I don't think a lot of people are as interested in their Chinese
people just
content.
Don't even know. They're like, what is this? Like, what the hell is Colorful Yunnan Paradise?
I don't even know what that is. Why would I listen? So we'll keep this short too. But Yunnan as a province is kind of known to have, like, the vastest amount of Chinese ethnic minorities, and it's really close to Laos and Vietnam and Cambodia. Like, it's in that corner of Southwest China, really. So there's a lot of history and a lot of cultural aspects to Yunnan that are like what Yunnan is known for. And this park that we're at celebrates that. So Colorful Yunnan Paradise really pays homage to all the different kinds of cultures and influences. So every area of the park is kind of themed to a different part of Yunnan. This is kind of like, it's not Tibetan because it's not Tibet, but it has, like, that kind of feel to it. Like, it's a mountain range with temples, and this is like a snowy area of the park. And the soundtrack is this killer, like, rock anthem that is designed, that is, like, made for this part of Yunnan. And then the theme of the ride is just a bunch of, like, rocks with, like, mountain cattle on it. And it's very well themed, actually. It doesn't have a lot of, it has a couple keyhole elements that are like these beautiful architectural pieces. Oh my God. And then this rock work with a giant eagle spreading out of it.
If you're listening to this and you haven't,
park.
Do yourself a favor and pull up a YouTube POV of this ride, because even if you've done some of the POVs of more obscure wing coasters like Falcon and Paracoaster and stuff, make sure you've done the POV of this one, because this one, I think, is just so stunning. Like, some of the wing coasters we've talked about may have better natural settings, but as far as, like, deliberate, like, theming, like, architectural setting, this one's pretty hard to beat.
Being a snowy temple with the two towers on it, and then, like, there's a giant element that is probably the biggest wing coaster element in the world, by the way. Now I think about it, it's from one end of the plot to the other end of the plot. It's a giant slow roll.
The slow roll on this
and
one,
it goes through those two towers at the entrance.
Amazing.
I mean, it's a phenomenal ride. giant airtime hill. I will say it doesn't do a whole lot, but what it does is just so clean and it's kind of intense. It is
This is
like a
another
really
one that
broad
kind of
stroke
feels like a
approach.
bit of a spin-off
Yeah.
of X-Flight. But it's also better than better than X-Flight, just because of the setting and everything that they chose to do. I think it's got a pretty similar sequence of events. It's got airtime hills, like Camelback hills, that X-Flight never really
like really big ones
concerned itself with. It feels like X-Flight, but with like some more drawn out, some more like elegance, more majesty to it.
And for all these coasters that we're talking about, we're going to be posting, of course, a lot of pictures this week. So definitely be following us on social media. Because, I mean, Wing coasters are already pretty to begin with, and then especially the Chinese ones. But even some of the European ones are just beautifully decorated, beautifully themed. And this is another one of those gorgeous rides. And before I want to move on to North America, I do want to mention that this layout, which seems kind of carefully calculated with the way the elements thread the thematic moments on the ride and like having the really broad stroke approach. It does that for the vast majority of the ride, but in the last 20% of the ride, you do that giant hill like that has the inversions through the towers, and then suddenly it has like this tiny little compact moment where you have like a really tight helix and like a normal size, almost like floorless size corkscrew into the brakes. And that's actually kind of funny because you're just like moving through the air at this like kind of slow pace, and you got good airtime, and there's really big elements, and all of a sudden at the end it just like slams
great
into
finale.
super tight
It
elements.
has one of the best
and
finales of a wing coaster.
It's like, what the hell?
Because
what the hell just happened?
It really pummels you there at the end. There's no,
and you can't see it. It's so hidden.
Yeah.
Even if you look at photos on RCDB, you cannot see the final two elements, which is actually kind of great because that is just the finale of this ride. Is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Anyway. Now, let's move on to North America. And I'm forgetting any, am I? I'm just doing it at the top of my head all of a sudden.
We won't spend as much time on the U.S. ones because I think these are ones that most people know very familiar with. And we have talked about Gatekeeper and Rapterra to great lengths just this calendar year alone. But I would go out on a limb and say that Gatekeeper is our favorite of the U.S. wing coasters. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, even though thematically it's kind of weak.
It's the coaster that we've ridden
it's more of an aesthetic
most at Cedar Point. That is always like an easy, like, well, if you don't know what to do next, do Gatekeeper.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, if you like for Gatekeeper and Rapterra, we just did episodes like the last month and a half, 2 months about these. So definitely listen to that because we'll dive into them a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I agree that Gatekeeper is probably our favorite. Yeah.
And then I'm a huge Wild Eagle girly, like you said at the beginning of the episode. That's our first love for wing coasters. I always loved the approach, like that one was the first one to really, instead of relying really heavily on like the keyhole stuff and the keyhole gimmicks, Wild Eagle like just shot it real straight and said like, we're just doing a looping coaster with a really nice setting. No fuss. It's not particularly long. It's not the fastest or anything, but it has a great presence. And to this day, I think it is the signature Dollywood ride. Like it is the literal center of the park. And then also I think symbolically, like is still the ride that represents Dollywood the best of all of their rides. My only complaint is that that first generation of wing coasters, the restraints would get like tighter and then they don't loosen up. And I don't know if...
Oh, yeah, good point.
I remember that vividly about my first couple of rides on Gatekeeper. Get used to it. I think X-Flight may still do that. I don't know if they fixed it or not. And I know after Gatekeeper, it stopped being an issue. But aside from that one small issue on Wild Eagle, it's still just a wonderful, majestic, truly patriotic eagle of a ride, although it is a little bit on the short side. And I prefer it.
But being on the hill like that is kind of cool, though.
It's just so
and being kind
stylish.
Of in a forest.
I love the bow tie finale, the little bow tie helix.
Yeah, and in a way, I just appreciate how it's kind of like an early generation. It feels like an early generation to me. In a way, it's good because in North America, I do think we have a really fun variety of them. We have Wild Eagle, which is kind of like the terrain, early generation one. X-Flight is like where they really started putting larger elements in it. And it feels like a great prototype, but also, in retrospect, I think, has a really clean layout. Then you've got your first ever launched one, which is also in the forest, Thunderbird. And you've got Gatekeeper, like a massive
Mac
one, like
Daddy.
a Chinese-sized massive one. And they've got Reptera, like a modern launch one with a bunch of elements that none of the other ones do. So I will say North America has a really fun, almost flattering
Like a nice
collection of them. All
variety.
5 are very, very different.
Yeah.
They're not really the same at all, which is really nice. And Wild League, of course, has the vertical loop, which I love, a little vertical loop and everything.
And Thunderbird has a vertical loop. I
guess.
love Thunderbird. I feel like Thunderbird is so underrated.
Oh, true. How could I
forget about her, and I have no business forgetting about Thunderbird, because for a while it was the only one with a launch, and that was like a great gimmick. And then it was still a really wonderful ride in and of itself. Beyond that, it's launching into the Immelman, into the vertical loop, and then the nice big like double sort of butterfly shape element, and then kind of takes off, kind of ground level, with a little twist and a little helix at the end. Really nice, really a nice ride. Not like crazy ambitious, but like it was just right for Holiday World, and like still one of like a really impressive launch coaster in its own right, as well.
And of course, Reptera, we've discussed it in full detail in a recent episode. I definitely recommend listen to it. I think we call it The State of B&M and Virginia, which we talk about how Reptera is just running like, honestly, kind of like shit. But what I will want to say about it real quick is I think conceptually it's a great replacement of Volcano. I think layout-wise, it's really fun. And we, again, discuss this in full detail. I definitely recommend listening to it. But for those that haven't and won't, the layout is really promising. It does a lot of things that other wing coasters haven't done, a lot of new elements we haven't seen before. It's launched, had a lot of airtime, a lot of transitions. It is, on paper, a really phenomenal wing coaster that I'm really excited about layout-wise, which is why I still have a degree of love for it. It just runs really poorly. But it is nice that we have Reptera in North America, and that it does feel so different. And when we kind of mentioned Flug de Ramona having like a flow to it, this ride doesn't feel like element, because almost everything it does is just kind of a movement. It's kind of a flow,
That's
kind
true.
of a connection.
After the Immelman,
really
it really does
Reptera.
have a nice flowy, like a nice liquidity
like it's
to
not
it.
just elements; it's just a bunch of different movements.
Everything
that,
in the middle of the ride
are
is kind of difficult to separate into elements.
Describe,
which I think is a great quality.
And I do appreciate that about it. If they ever fix the rattle on it, if they are managed to like improve the quality of maybe the way it runs, I don't know what they got to do for it, but if they do manage to improve that, I think Reptera could rapidly rise in my rankings.
It makes me wonder
because I do love the layout.
I know we're never going to give this one much of a chance, because there's a good chance that they won't let us ride it. But Da Vinci Ride in Fantasy Valley, since it opened in 2022, which is when things kind of started to go south with B&M coasters, I wonder how it runs. Like, I wonder if it runs like decent or if it runs like Reptera. Just kind of pontificating.
Yeah, I wonder that too. So now let's try and do a rapid fire ranking of them all before I round up the episode with a couple of hypotheticals.
I can definitely give you my top 5. And
okay, what are your top 5? I want to see if I agree with it.
My number 1 is Paracoaster.
Okay.
You don't agree? No. Is it Falcon? Yours is Falcon.
Keep going.
Falcon is my number 2. I have always loved Falcon. I loved Falcon more than you did when we first wrote it in 2019. Now you have...
You know how difficult this is for me?
I know it is.
This is so difficult.
But like, so yeah, it's Falcon.
I'm going to say this. Whatever list we end up making is not definitive.
No.
It could change.
And like, I don't think you and I even agree on stuff, because like we have the same top 2 and I think the same bottom 2, but they're not in the same spots. Paracoaster is my winner.
Okay, I'm going to call a shot. Okay.
Falcon is number 2.
I agree.
Forest Predator is number 3. Flying Wing Coaster is number 4. And Gatekeeper is number 5. For me, that's my top 5. I love my big, drawn-out, elegant ballet in the sky.
Okay, you're going to think I'm absolutely insane for this. I'm going to say I agree with Paracoaster, I agree with Falcon. Then I would put Gatekeeper in there.
That's fair.
Because Gatekeeper... So I'm going to put Gatekeeper as third.
We love Gatekeeper.
Then I would say...
Flying Wing Coaster and Forest Predator.
Flying Wing Coaster. Okay, I can agree with that. Flying Wing, Forest Predator. I'm writing these down.
Sure, so our top 5 is
end.
Pretty similar.
Forest Predator. Then I would say Flug de Ramona, believe it or not.
I would put Flug de Ramona up very high. I support that.
Yeah. So Flug de Ramona.
But we have to put
Then I would
Thunderbird
say,
relatively high up. Like, it needs to be at least in the top half.
honestly, for me, Thunderbird's kind of low.
But it's so good. Like, I
don't think it's Thunderbird like that.
Okay, well, okay, fine. I mean, I guess
you know what? Okay, let's work from the bottom real quick. So I would say that, and I'm gonna call the executive shot on this because I'm the one who wrote on the outer seats for all of these. And that is the real question when it comes to the wing coasters. That's when. So if a wing coaster is good or bad is mostly determined by like the outside seat on the wing. I am going to put Mandrill Mayhem dead last, and I am going to put Reptera right above that.
I'm shaking my head. Okay, fine. That's fine. This is your...
and Reptera right above that. And
wing coasters are your favorite, so I'll give it to you. After the bottom two, I don't really know... Because... those two are two that I simply am not a huge fan of, and the rest I'm a fan of all of the others. So like, it's hard for me.
You're not gonna love what I'm gonna say here, but I am actually thinking of placing the wing coaster in Happy Valley Chongqing. I would probably put that as number 8 because it has that scope. So I'm gonna put that Flying Wing Coaster. I guess is what we officially call it.
I thought you said Flying Wing Coaster was your third. Or 4.
Sorry, I was mistaken.
Were you thinking of Wing Coaster at Colorful Yunnan Paradise?
Yes, that was actually Wing Coaster Colorful Yunnan Paradise is actually my number 4, I think.
Yeah, no, that one would be like my 6 or 7. Because for me,
then we can put a 6 or 7.
The Chongqing and Nanjing ones. Really? Yeah.
But man, it has that audio and it like... Okay,
Forest Predator is 3rd. Flying Wing Coaster, our neon green queen from Chongqing, is my 4. And Gatekeeper is number 5.
Okay.
And then 6,
I'm going to start working from the bottom again. Yeah. No, I got that. I've adjusted the list here on my end. So from the bottom, you're not going to like this. I'm going to put Wild Eagle pretty low, actually.
That's fine.
I'm going to put Wild Eagle right.
I feel like Wild Eagle, X-Flight are kind of,
So Wild Eagle I would put right over Reptera. Then I would personally put Thunderbird right over that. I like Thunderbird, but not that much. What about
X-Flight?
Of course.
X-Flight's not that good. No, I love X-Flight.
I like X-Flight a lot better.
I would put X-Flight. I would take Wild Eagle over X-Flight. And I would definitely take Thunderbird over X-Flight.
No.
You're psychotic.
No. You're so wrong for this. Oh my God. X-Flight does so much more.
I can't handle this.
You're crazy.
You're
whole,
crazy.
Giant, the helix, the turn becoming like this roll in the opposite direction and like a turn in the opposite direction. It's like a never-ending roll. Oh my God, it's fucking phenomenal. Are you kidding? No.
Also, where are we putting Banshee? Like the inverted wing coaster. We need to rank her too.
So all I have left here is I have 2 spots, and I have Swarm and Phoenix.
Definitely Swarm.
I would put Swarm over Phoenix.
Yeah. No offense, Phoenix, but definitely.
Would you put Phoenix over X-Flight? I would put over X-Flight.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I'd put a lot of shit over X-Flight. We already established that.
Okay. I have a top 15. I have a top 15.
Okay.
All of our 15 are written. Okay. Based on you just yelling back and forth. If anyone's still with us at this point.
This is fun.
So, okay. Ready for this? Okay. And this is mostly because you love Parrot Coaster so much. I honored you here, okay?
You love Parrot Coaster. That is not a compromise.
Number 1, Parrot Coaster. 2, Falcon at Wishy Sunak Land. 3, Gatekeeper. 4, Flying Wing Coaster. Oh, I didn't put anything on number 5.
Forest Predator.
Okay, so Forest Predator is number 5. Hold up. So then, what's number 6?
Flugter der Månen.
Okay, Flugter der Månen. And then where's Wings of Glory?
Oh, Wings of Glory is in the middle there too. It's below Colorful Yunnan Paradise.
Over Swarm? No, I would take Swarm still.
Yeah, I would take Swarm.
Personally. But I would take it over Phoenix. Okay, we're gonna have to redo this. Sorry, guys.
Wings of Glory is like dead center. Like it is the exact center of this list.
Okay, ready? Okay, restart. Okay. Number 1, Parrot Coaster. Number 2, Falcon, Wishy Sunak Land. Number 3, Gatekeeper, Cedar Point. Number 4, Flying Wing Coaster, Chongqing Happy Valley. Next, 5, Forest Predator. At Nanjing Happy Valley.
Backward seats. 6,
Flugter der Månen.
At Haida Park.
7, Wing Coaster at Colorful Yunnan Paradise.
The only one that's just called Wing Coaster.
Then 8, Swarm. 9, Wings of Glory.
At HB World.
10, Phoenix.
At
Overland. 11, X-Flight at Stickers Good America. Number 12, Thunderbird at Hollywood. Number 13, Wild Eagle at Dollywood. Number 14, Reptera at King's Dominion. Number 50, Mandrill Mayhem at Chester Worlds of Adventure.
There we go.
Bam. Boom.
I still think Thunderbird is too low.
But I think it's actually pretty excellent.
No,
I really don't care for Thunderbird that much. I like it a lot, but
I feel you a little bit
like
because
I like Phoenix better.
It shouldn't be so easy to forget about Thunderbird, even though it's so amazing on paper. I do forget about it.
So maybe that's
part of the problem. That's part of the problem.
It should be at number 12.
Right.
By the way, I think it's actually pretty interesting top 15.
I agree.
I like
it.
I'm gonna have you write that down while I'm at work, so we can use it for promotion because I will forget.
Yeah.
And it's on a little sticky note here in the office. Anyway, so then I have a couple questions to round out this episode, and that is my first question is, which park do you think could benefit from one? What park could use a wing coaster? I have a little list.
Well, let's just operate under the assumption that B&M gets their shit together and
it runs like a previous
era. It runs like it at the very least. Like we cannot have any more gatekeeper or not. Sorry, not gatekeeper. We can't have any more Rapterra and Mandrill Mayhem like experiences with these coasters. Like, so let's just assume that B&M gets their shit together and the next wing coaster runs really well. SeaWorld Orlando is like my favorite park.
Yeah,
that's pontificate
one on my list.
Having a wing coaster. We have talked about this before, but I dream of like a Scarlet Macaw Parrot wing coaster for SeaWorld Orlando.
Either for there or for Busch Gardens Tampa.
Yeah, either park. Because then it would complete. They would have every like B&M coaster imaginable after that. At that point.
And believe it or not, I'm gonna stick with the whole SeaWorld thing because I think SeaWorld San Diego, which was rumored to get a small one actually, maybe like a Mandrill Mayhem sized one, or maybe a smaller one because it's not a really big park with a lot of room. But there was rumors for SeaWorld San Diego to get one. And I think that would be a really, really nice fit for them too.
Virtually every SeaWorld park would do great with one. The only one that would be ruled out now, just now, as of this year, would be Busch Gardens Williamsburg because Rapterra has kind of taken the spot. But
yeah,
I feel like if King's Dominion hadn't built Rapterra, like Busch Gardens might have. Like, there's just something about considering that there is not a single wing coaster in the Busch Gardens SeaWorld lexicon. These rides seem like they would be perfect for a park like this, and I think that's partially because Parrot Coaster being the fave and Chime on Ocean Kingdom being like a giant mutant superhero version of SeaWorld and Busch Gardens together, like it begs for it. It begs to be applied to like one of the SeaWorld parks and or maybe Busch Gardens Tampa. I mean, they could put one in Sesame Place for all I care. Like, I just would love to see a wing coaster come to one of these parks.
And then I personally think another great park for this, and this is kind of wild because it just announced a new area with a new coaster. I always thought Park Asterix could do a really nice one. They did such a great job with Osiris with their inverted coaster. That's a newer generation of B&M. And they did such a nice job with that integration and the way it vibes. I feel like this park could totally pull off a nice compact wing coaster. Of course, the European parks, you got the European-sized ones. Same, but I was always thinking Europa Park would be a really cool fit for this because they would also be able to manage to incorporate it with like a country, and they're pretty decent on aesthetically. Because I think wing coasters require an aesthetic, and they require theming, and they require elements like that, which is maybe why some of the U.S. ones rank a little bit lower because they don't really do that because U.S. regional parks just don't do that. Sorry, but the U.S. regional parks just kind of suck at theming stuff or integrating it nicely. But, I think a park like Park Asterix, Europa Park, they could do a really good job at that, I think.
This might be kind of
a nice
lazy answer, and it's not on your list, but I would say that any park that has a dive coaster, automatically a B&M dive coaster, there's just something about wing coasters and dive coasters together that I think
they complement
each other so well.
In the past, I would have agreed. But now I feel like the dive coaster is turning into the wing coaster.
Yeah.
You have your extended seats on the sides. They're all having all these elements, all these inversions. Maybe I don't agree with that anymore.
We finally
Maybe
like we just rode Yukon Striker. Something about Yukon Striker feels like an amalgam of wing coasters and dive coasters. Something about that zero G thing that it does in the middle that just feels so wing coastery, and having a vertical loop. Like, yeah, I wouldn't pick Six Flags over Texas for a wing coaster now because they're getting the Giga Dive. It's going to check multiple boxes. But there's some parks, like Six Flags Great America, getting a dive coaster after already having a wing coaster. I feel like it works for them. Gardaland, Haida Park, Cedar Point, like these are all places that having both definitely works.
You know what I've always thought?
SeaWorld San Diego would have
agrees.
both. If they got a wing coaster,
true.
it would be two coasters complementing each other really nicely.
I've always thought that Cigarettes Great Adventure should have had a wing coaster because, especially now that Green Lantern is gone, but even before Green Lantern, because they had a really solid collection of B&Ms, I feel like it would have been a nice complement. And I feel like a park like Cedar Point is a perfect proof that you can have it all. You can have every type of coaster under the sun. So I think this could be their gatekeeper. If they did like a really nice, big, high budget wing coaster, I think it would actually suit Great Adventure pretty well, especially if it was like on the lake. Of course, they have the stupid little SNS tumbly ride now, but in my head, it doesn't even exist because who thinks about the Joker? Nobody wants to ride that. No offense. But
I mean, King's Dominion put two right next to each other. They've got
also
the 40 free spin
true.
the I don't think even the marketplace lumps the two together.
Yeah. So I always thought that would be a really great park, especially on the backside of Great Adventure. You have a gorgeous setting. If you put one of them on like the water on the backside of Great Adventure, man, it could be so spectacular. So I always thought that would be a good park. I mean, I guess I'm a wing coaster stan, so I feel like every park could have a wing coaster. Those are some of the ones that came to my mind.
There's so many parks that just could use another coaster, and I feel like a wing coaster is a great fit. Like Everland in South Korea. Like, it's a beautiful park. They have a really high attendance. They need another coaster badly. They still haven't given us a proper replacement for Eagle Fortress. So, like, what if they built a B&M Wing Coaster and called it Eagle Fortress?
Yeah. Oh, my God. 100%. I totally like that idea. Yeah.
And, like, Korea doesn't have a wing coaster yet. Everland, if somebody's going to build one, it's Jeonju World because they already have two B&Ms. So if I was Everland, I would beat them to the punch and put a wing coaster in before Jeonju World does.
Or I always kind of thought that Nagashima would be able to make what happen, even though it wouldn't be 100%. Very pretty. Because they're so good at like throwing coasters together like that.
Flying coasters is another one that I think would plays off nicely for wing coasters. Like having a B&M flying coaster and a wing coaster in the same park, I think would fit really well. There isn't one. We don't have a park that has both. Oh yeah, we do. Six Flags Great America. Great America has both. Are there more?
Yeah.
Is there another park that has a wing coaster and a flyer? I think it's just Great America. Six Flags Over Georgia doesn't have one. I think so. Cedar Point.
But I also always have said that like the wing coaster really is like almost like the evolution of the flying coaster, because I think for the general public, it's the whole idea of flying, being on the wings. Yeah. You are super exposed. You're not on the track. Like kind of like the flying coaster, you can't see the track because the track's on your back. The same thing with the wing coaster. There is no track. It's all in the middle. So like, I think, and operationally and mechanically and maintenance wise, like the wing coaster is just much easier, much easier to maintain. It has probably even a broader appeal.
Like,
so I think that's why the wing coaster is being sold and not the flying coaster.
Like they've already got the flyer and they have the hyper coaster. I think
Happy Valley Shanghai should get one, but they're getting the
surf coaster, which is exciting. It's like that's like even better because it's like who knew that they would sell another one of those.
But yeah, I think those are kind of the parks that
I would love to see a park in Europe get a big wing coaster, like something longer than 3,000 feet. I don't know who that park would be, but like somebody like somewhere in Europe.
Actually, funny enough, I was going to mention that I think because of the scope and the way that Parker Warner is laid out,
my God.
doing an out and back into the desert.
Doing
an out and back into the desert would be such a cool fit for them.
That would just be a great choice for them.
I mean, they could plop it right next to Coaster Express, right in between Coaster Express and Rio Bravo, and they could just have it be a Wild West theme. Could be another one of those Wild West experiments.
To that end, Port Aventura would also lend itself nicely to a wing coaster. These are both parks with a lot of B&M history, and I'm a little surprised that neither of them have taken the bait on the wing coaster as of yet, considering most of the countries in Europe, like most of the big coaster countries in Europe have a wing coaster. The United Kingdom, Germany, the Netherlands. Like it's a likable concept that I think is very attractive to parks, whether they've built a B&M before or if it's their only B&M. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that's a great choice. I would love to see that happen for Warner Brothers. I know there's more too. There's a lot of parks. I think like you said it earlier, like as lovers of wing coasters, it just feels like the perfect addition to any park, you know, any park that doesn't already have. I mean, Magic Mountain could get a wing coaster and I would be thrilled. Like they could fling a wing coaster right off the side of the mountain.
But again, I feel like this is the poor question to ask me or you because we're just wing coaster fans. Like, yeah, if it was up to me, we have a wing coaster at every single park in the country. Like, you know, it's kind of a difficult
I would love for King's Dominion to get a wing coaster that doesn't run like shit. You know, maybe they could try again.
Oh my God, Alexander.
Like, get us. It's better luck next time.
But yeah, overall, I think this kind of highlights even how much we appreciate wing coasters, how big fans we are, and that we've been so lucky to ride so many of them. But I really think it's kind of the underdog product because a lot of, in the enthusiast world anyway, I think a lot of enthusiasts do not appreciate wing coasters for what they are. They're not just high capacity, they're not just mechanically very sound, they're not just operate like a dream most of the time. They're also just great fits with a broad approach. They are not as weak as people say. Like there are some incredibly intense moments on these wing coasters. I've graded out on several wing coasters. I just think that enthusiasts need to let it go and just appreciate the wing coaster for what it is. And the whole product line, the fact that there's not a single one that's the same as another one that's operating. Again, the Hot Go one isn't, you know, kind of an iffy situation. But generally speaking, there's not a single wing coaster that's like the next wing coaster over. It's just a cool product line, and I really love it. And I think that's why I wanted to do this episode so badly. Yeah, I love it. I'm in it to wing it.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's going to wrap things up. This was a longer episode than I was expecting, but then when we're talking about wing coasters, you're going to be late.
Minutes, so, I'm not going to be late.
Go to the airport.
Anyway. So with that, thank you for listening to this episode of Coaster Kings Radio. We have a bunch of episodes recently. Of course, we talked about Canada's Wonderland recently, Cedar Point, King's Dominion, Busch Gardens, all the UK parks. This is a really park-heavy season, so definitely check out those episodes. And wherever you're listening, preferably on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, leave us 5 stars. Give us a little review if you feel so generous. And we will see you guys on another episode coming up soon. Lots of episodes coming up because I'm actually probably going to have a little bit of time off so we can actually record some stuff too. So it'll be kind of nice. And we'll catch you guys on an episode very soon. Bye.